Hello and Sawadee Cup. Today we're going to find out if it's possible to turn a cheap piece of meat into a delicious tender steak. So for this we have a beef chuck fillet steak which is boneless. This piece weighs 0.85 pounds and it cost us $5.09. So for the sake of this experiment, we're going to try and tenderize one piece of this steak with hammering and salting. The other piece we're going to leave completely as is, as the control for this experiment. So first things first, just take the steak out, and we can see it's got a decent amount of fat to it. It's you could say it's pretty well marbled. Got a nice piece of fat running through the middle here. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to cut this evenly into two pieces. So I'm just going to get my measuring tape. I'm only kidding, come on, we're not that serious. I think the fact that this piece of fat runs through the middle, if we just cut around here, we're going to get two pretty even pieces of meat. And if we look here, yeah, it's decent marbling here, a little bit there, got a big chunk of fat. This piece is going right through the middle. Hope this one's coming apart. You can see here the marbling's half decent. This side not so much, but I think what we'll do is we'll use this as the control, and this will be the one that we tenderize. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to beat the meat, using the steak hammer, and then we're going to drench it in pink Himalayan salt and leave it for a couple of hours to see if that will help tenderize this meat. So I'm just going to wash my hands again. Always wash your hands after handling your meat. Keep things sanitary. So first of all, I'm going to go at this with the steak hammer. We have the coarser spiking and then the less coarse. So we're going to go at it first of all with the heavy coarse of spike. That's a pretty well beaten piece of meat. So next up, to continue this process, we're going to use a lot of pink Himalayan salt. Now don't be concerned about the amount of salt being used here, because we're going to wash it off before we cook it. So this will not produce a salty steak. Just absolutely cover this thing with the pink Himalayan salt, which is very coarse. So now I'm going to get this wrapped up in plastic, and we'll be back in a couple of hours, and then we're going to cook the steaks to see which one is the most tender. Okay, so it's been about 3 hours. We had the meat tenderizing. Of course, as we said earlier, this piece we hammered and we salted, a lot of salt, for about 3 hours. This piece we did nothing with, and as you can see here, the meat that was beaten and salted has taken on a much darker color, and obviously it's practically doubled in size. The meat that we did nothing to still looks like it was the minute we bought it. So now we're going to cook these steaks to see which one has the best flavor and is the most tender. So to start the process, we're just going to lightly oil these steaks. A little touch of olive oil, not too much. You spread the oil over the surface. You know, prevents sticking, also allows for better cooking. So that's one side. Do the same On the other side. No, not too much. Just going to wash my hands. And now we're going to season these steaks before cooking. Okay, we've got the skillet heated up, touch of olive oil in with the steak. So the first one, second one is cooked in 2 pieces. Okay, so our steaks are cooked, and what we're going to do is we're going to let these sit for about 5 minutes because they are still cooking, and if we were to cut them now we're going to lose all that delicious juice. So give us 5 minutes and we'll come back. We're going to cut the steaks and then we're going to taste them. So it's been 5 minutes since the steak has been resting. Time to cut the steak. So I'm going to start with the steak that was not processed in any way. This basically came straight from the packet, and it looks good. Nice pink color. Just going to cut a small piece for sampling. See that? Let's see. It's chewy. This was the $5 steak. Chuck steak. Very chewy. This was the steak that was beaten and then drenched in salt. So take a piece from the middle. Wow, rare. I'm going to cut a thin piece for sampling. I'm going to try this. Very tender, however, also quite salty. You know, despite washing all that salt off, it has retained a somewhat salty flavour. Maybe I'm going to give a piece to Pecci to try. Cut a nice thin slice. And let her try. Let's see, what do you think?
Salty.
Salty, right?
Little salty.
What about the regular untreated steak? Try that.
Tastes better than the salty one.
Yeah.
But chewy.
Yeah. So we've come to the conclusion that yes, the hammering and the salting does make for a more tender piece of meat. However, despite extensive washing, it's still retained a somewhat salty flavour. So in terms of this experiment, I don't know what to say, because without question this is a much more tender piece of meat, less chewy, but it is somewhat salty in flavour. This one tastes better, but it is very, very chewy. So is it possible to turn a cheap piece of steak into a good piece of steak? Not really. You get what you pay for. So I would recommend, if you want a flavorful, tender piece of meat, just pay the bit extra, get a nice ribeye. Don't try to turn cheap beef into good steak. It doesn't happen. So anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that. and you don't have to do what we just did. We're telling you right now, buy good steak. So please like, please do subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.